Everyone, I'm Brady Deaton, Chancellor of the University of Missouri, and I welcome you to the campus of the University of Missouri here in Columbia. I'm also Chair of the Board for International Food and Agricultural Development, or BIFAD, and this is a meeting of BIFAD, an official meeting taking place here at the Reynolds Journalism Institute on our campus, housed in the School of Journalism of the University of Missouri. So we're pleased to have you. This is the first time in history, actually, that the BIFAD board meeting is going out over webcast to individuals around our campus, the United States, and really around the world. We will have interaction, and I welcome all of you, wherever you are, to this particular and what we feel is a very important exercise in democracy that involves the U.S. Agency for International Development and a citizen advisory group appointed by the President consisting of 7 members representing higher education, the private sector, both business and non-governmental organizations. This was created by legislation in 1975 by the Finley-Humphrey Act, and Congressman Paul Finley from the House, we were honored to have in a planning session of discussion with us yesterday. He came down from Illinois to visit with us, and of course the late Senator Hubert Humphrey were the authors of the original legislation that led to this moment of our ability to work together as professionals and interact and provide advice then to a very important agency of international development devoted to addressing world food issues, particularly as they impinge on the most vulnerable populations in the world, where the incomes are the lowest, where the nutritional and food needs are the greatest. And we're here to help enhance an understanding of that, drawing on the latest scientific, educational, and innovative knowledge that we can gain from all sectors of our society. So thank you for being with us. We're in for a very important and exciting session today, and I welcome you. There will be time for interaction with the audience here and out there, anywhere in the world. As you have questions, you will be contacting us, and we will be interfacing as board and staff with you. Let me begin by introducing members of our board and asking them to help me introduce themselves. We have 2 new board members today. I indicated the board consists of 7 individuals. One of our board members cannot be with us today, unfortunately due to family illnesses. Joe Luck, who former president of Heifer International and a recipient of the World Food Prize, is not with us today. So we miss her, and we wish her and her family the very best. We have 2 new board members, and this is their inaugural meeting. So I want to take a moment to not only give you a bit of background on them, but also to ask them to say a word to you as well. I will begin with President Waded Cruzado from Montana State University, to my right. Dr. Cruzado currently serves as the 12th president of Montana State University, one of only 108 universities in the nation recognized by the Carnegie Foundation for very high research activity. As president of Montana State, Dr. Cruzado has significantly reshaped the face and future of the state's first land-grant university and leading agricultural research institution. She's an articulate and inspirational speaker on the role of land-grant universities and cooperative extension, and has become well-known champion of that mission within her state and nationally. Before she was president of Montana State, Dr. Cruzado also served as executive vice president and provost at New Mexico State University, and was interim president there from 2008 to 2009. During that time, she led a full accreditation of the university by the Higher Learning Commission for the first time in the institution's history, and that's significant for all of us who know higher education. She achieved record student enrollment and success at the 2009 session of the New Mexico legislature that included $5.5 million in additional funding for the Center for the Arts. President Cruzado was honored by the Montana ambassadors as the 2011 Michael P. Malone Educator of the Year for outstanding accomplishments, excellence, and leadership in the field of education. In 2012, she was selected to deliver the prestigious Seaman Knapp Memorial Lecture in memory of the Father of Extension at the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities annual meeting in Denver, Colorado. Dr. Cruzado was born and raised in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico, home of the Commonwealth's land-grant university, which she attended. Dr. Cruzado, we welcome you to the BIFAD and ask you to make any opening comments you would like to make.
Good morning, Chancellor Deaton, and good morning to all the members of BIFAD and to our public here. We're absolutely delighted to be here, and I want to thank all of you for this opportunity to think about the big problems of the world, starting with food safety, the diminution of hunger and famine in the world, and how can we bring the best minds in the world to help us in this endeavor. I look forward to working with BIFAD members. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome again. Our next new board member, just to my immediate right, is Dr. Harold Lee Martin, Sr., the Chancellor of the North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, a position which he assumed in June of 2009. Dr. Martin was the first alumnus to serve as Chief Administrator of that very distinguished institution. As Chancellor, he served as Chief Executive and Administrative Head of the university, exercising overall authority subject to the direction of the North Carolina A&T Board of Trustees and President of the University of North Carolina UNC system. Prior to his appointment as Chancellor at North Carolina A&T, Dr. Martin was the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of North Carolina General Administration, where he led the development and implementation of the university's academic mission, including its teaching, research, and international programs and student affairs. He's a major contributor to the Greensboro community, lending himself to service on various boards and committees, including Action Greensboro, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, Community Foundation Board of Directors, Gateway University Research Park, Greensboro Partnership, North Carolina Teachers and State Employees Retirement System, the NC Office of the State Treasurer Investment Advisory Committee, Opportunity Greensboro, Piedmont Federal Savings Bank, and Research Triangle Institute. He holds bachelor's and master's degree of science in electrical engineering from North Carolina A&T and a PhD in electrical engineering from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. In fact, we discovered we overlapped there during my tenure at Virginia Tech as well. So, Dr. Martin, we're delighted to have you as a member of BIFAD.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Deaton, and we're delighted to be here on this remarkable campus at the University of Missouri, and certainly delighted to be a member of this board. We have some incredibly important work to do as a board, quite honestly, solving challenging problems and feeding the world's population and growth in population, and taking full advantage of the incredible talents we have at our universities, including our faculty, students, and staff. And it's important for us to take a serious look at these important challenges and do the very best we can to provide the kinds of recommendations to Administrator Shaw as appropriate for ensuring that we are directing resources to helping to solve these challenging world problems. We're delighted to be here. Thank you.
Dr. Martin, thank you, and we're delighted to have you working with us. The BIFAD legislation actually requires that 4 members of the 7-member board be drawn from higher education, with the other individuals representing the private sector, both private business and the non-governmental organization world. And so you will see that representation as we work across introductions of board members here. Let me turn to recognizing 3 other members of our board who are with us today and ask them to say a few words as well. And I'll begin on my left with Dr. Catherine Bertini, professor at Syracuse University, professor of public policy, and also is a recipient of the World Food Prize. Dr. Bertini.
Thank you, thank you, Chairman Deaton. Thank you for your leadership on BIFAD. It's been a pleasure for me to serve on the board since 2006. I come to this work with a passion for helping to create or change policy to be supportive of smallholder farmers in developing countries throughout the world, the predominance of whom are women. And in that sense, I've been able to do this kind of work since I left the World Food Program and since I left being Under Secretary General of the UN to do this kind of work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and their Agriculture Development Program, with the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, where I serve as a senior fellow and have helped create proposals for agriculture policy to present to the U.S. government and others, and on several other boards, relevant boards and commissions. But here it's a pleasure to work with my colleagues and to support the Feed the Future initiative and other important initiatives of Administrator Shah. Thank you.
Thank you. To my
Thank you, Dr. Deaton, for your introduction and your leadership on BIFAD. Just to provide a little bit of my background, I'm a faculty member at Purdue University doing research and teaching in plant genetics and breeding, but also serve in leadership on campus, heading the Global Food Security Center there at Purdue University. And I have the privilege of serving in other boards with Dr. Bertini on the Chicago Council for Global Affairs, and also serve on the consortium board of the CGIAR and the Sasakawa Global 2000. Probably the biggest testimony I can provide on the privilege that I feel serving on BIFAD is that growing up in Ethiopia, I received my high school education and college education, and coming to Purdue University, receiving my graduate education through funding from the U.S. Agency for International Development. I particularly draw your attention to the fact that I received my high school and college education with the .4 program that established these institutions in my country. So a committee such as this provided that opportunity for me to receive education and to be here. And so having come full circle today, it's that I feel hugely privileged to be sitting here with the hope that actions and that we take on this committee may make a difference in the lives of somebody in developing country. So it's a huge responsibility, and I take it as seriously as I can and feel privileged to be serving with all of you.
Please, thank you very much. To my far right is Marty McVeigh, the Honorable Marty McVeigh, who's a private investor and from Houston, Texas, and represents the private business sector on the BIFAD board. Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'd like to say how thankful I am to be here at the University of Missouri. We've gotten such a great welcome from faculty, staff, and students here today. And I think I can say I've not been introduced lately where I'm considered to be on the right. So only in Missouri, I think. Again, very delighted to be here, very delighted to be a member of a very distinguished board that is part of the United States Agency for International Development, one of the most important government agencies that I can think of for our future. I've also been very delighted and excited to travel around the world on behalf of this body and see the good work that folks are doing in the mission, and also policy that's being created here and in Washington. So we're very delighted to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Marty, thank you. And we're just delighted to have you here and for this work session. It's going to be has already been very inspiring in our planning sessions, and we're looking forward to a rich dialogue with our program today. We have two other members of BIFAD who are outgoing members of the board who have worked long and in a very invigorated way to serve the Agency for International Development and providing advice to Administrator Rod Shaw and staff. And we're going to take a few moments to recognize them in a special way, and with the assistance of Mark Varner, who's staff at APLU and works with our secretariat. We will provide you some background information on them. We'll be recognizing Dr. Bill DeLauder from Delaware State University, and then Dr. Elsa Morano from Texas A&M University. So I'm going to take a little walk around front to say hello to them while you hear more about their backgrounds. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Varner from APLU, and I'm a professor emeritus at the University of Maryland. Dr. William B. DeLauder is President Emeritus of Delaware State University. He has been a member of BIFAD since 2002. He played a lead role in the BIFAD Minority Serving Institution Task Force and led the establishment of the BIFAD Award for Scientific Excellence in a USAID CRISP. Please welcome and help me congratulate Dr. DeLauder. Dr. Elsa A. Morano is President Emeritus of Texas A&M University. She is currently a professor of food science and nutrition at Texas A&M and is director of their Borlaug Center there. She's been a member of BIFAD since 2008 and played a lead role in the BIFAD Task Force on Haiti Reconstruction.
Dr. Morano and Dr. DeLauder, and let me just say, these individuals have given of themselves so much, and they joined us in a planning session yesterday that's so important to what we do, and as with so many past BIFAD members, they stand ready to be of assistance as we look to the future. I know that in both of these cases, and certainly we will be drawing on them. Let me point out that as you came in this morning, you may have seen posters downstairs from the Food for the Future Mizzou Advantage, one of the fundamental blocks of strategic planning here at the University of Missouri. Our honor students, these are undergraduates, and you saw some very distinguished posters on display, along with displays of posters by our Borlaug Fellows, who are actually, I believe, all traveling abroad at this time. But I wanted you to know, as you walk around the Institute here, you will see this fine display of life sciences research that is so important to what we do as BIFAD members too, and I hope that some of you will take advantage of that. As you're aware, we only are where we are because of wonderful staff work, and I want to recognize our executive director at the USAID Secretariat for BIFAD, Dr. Susan Owens. Susan, thank you, and your staff. I won't name them all. You heard Mark Varner a moment ago. There are others here. Malcolm Butler, who works with APLU, and they work with a very fine group of staff within USAID, many of whom will be recognized as we go through the program here this morning, and so we'll call attention to that. So it's a great partnership working with USAID. We're dependent on that wonderful staff work for what they do to provide us with appropriate material and planning as we work with the administration, with Dr. Raj Shah and others in the administration, some of whom, as I indicated, you will see today. Also, I want to thank my executive assistant, Ann Magruder, who's worked so tirelessly for all that we are doing here today. And thank you. We are now at the point where we're going to initiate sort of the business for the day. I'm going to open this up first for old and new business. And let me just say, after that, we will hear some outreach reports from members of the board who have been working with USAID missions and mission initiatives in different parts of the world. We will then go to a formal panel presented by USAID staff, looking at new developments in the innovation labs, the world of what you may know very well as cooperative research support programs, or CRISPs, that have been sort of reoriented within the USAID mission based on a lot of work that BIFAD has done with them. And then we will have a presentation on agricultural research from the perspective of one land-grant university, the University of Missouri in that case. So that sort of represents the flow of the program for today. And where there will be time for discussion, certainly by BIFAD members, and also we will, at various times, we'll be taking questions from the audience and from the web-streamed audience that we have out there. So we're going to first begin with an item of old business that I know is before us, and there may be others, but there has been a great deal of work over the last couple of years and hard thinking based on human institutional development program within USAID, or HICD as it's called, And heading that has been Dr. Gabisa Ajita, a member of the board who's worked with the BIFAD committee. And we wanted to turn for an update on that work. Gabisa.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton. I'm pleased to provide this update on the Human and Institutional Capacity Development assignment that we received from USAID Administrator Dr. Rajiv Shah, actually about 2 years ago when we were all sworn in. And the first task that he assigned us was to provide him with an analysis and a consensus document on where we stand within the agency on human and institutional capacity development. I believe that came out of his recognition on the importance of human and institutional capacity development to the agency, and the recognition, I assume, of the expertise of the current BIFAD membership to provide that kind of analysis. Also, I think the recognition that I'm sure he knows and the rest of us are learning of the unique partnership between the agency and the U.S. university community in that partnership of working together to deliver on the promise of improving democracy and livelihood in developing countries. Engagement in HICD is the most fitting role for the U.S. university community, as no institution anywhere in the world can dispense such charge any better or even more, or ever more effectively than our universities, with the history and legacy of our excellence in education and research, and with that embedded tripartite function of our university systems. HICD is also the most important lever for transforming agricultural development and creating more stable societies and thriving economies in developing countries. No other intervention by the US government would create the lasting friendship and loyalty, or can create societies friendly to the United States and having young men and women from developing countries spend time in our dynamic campuses, or having our great faculty, staff, and students as ambassadors with time spent in developing country institutions. These are not speculations on my part. Evidences from the past show this very clearly. In every society around the world, on the aggregate, those that have gotten to know America at personal level, as foreign students do when we learn together, explore together, and break bread together, grasp that lasting value and ideals on which this country is built upon. The challenge, however, is the demand for HICD has steadily grown. As our theories of change continue to evolve, the impact pathways for ag and economic transformation models expanded. The variety of HICD needs increased as well. These varieties of training that have emerged include and range from short-term participant training via workshops espoused mainly by the NGO community to a variety of other training programs. Significant resources had to be shifted from long-term degree training to such short-term trainings over time. More recently, as you've heard, the President's accentuation of the value of STEM education both here and abroad will also need huge resource commitments as well. And also the need to engage private sector for skill development to catalyze entrepreneurial capacity in developing countries is going to need another significant fusion of resources as well. Farmer training to enhance productivity skills, farmer cooperative developments, the importance of exposing farm communities to ICT technology to connect farmers to markets, etc., all are valuable training resources, but again, the demand for resources to meet these challenges is great. So all of this suggests that careful assessment of needs in target feed the future countries is going to be needed. A meta-analysis of a sort in terms of sorting out the various needs that are out there and the critical needs, particularly in meeting the needs of feed the future countries that the US government is investing on. Also necessary, we think, is improving the capacity within the U.S. Agency for International Development, as well as the capacity for U.S. universities to be meeting these high human and institutional capacity development engagement on behalf of our U.S. government. Another thing that we think that we would need to spend time on learning more is to find means of aligning the charge in USAID Washington and the programs in USAID missions in developing countries, and particularly with the increasing investments in Feed the Future agenda in those countries that have been identified for this support. It is important to recognize that in spite of the significant increases in funding for agricultural programs through Feed the Future, long-term human and institutional capacity development involvement by the U.S. government has gradually decreased. And so I would like, just by providing an update in terms of the thought processes that had gone between our HICD working group and the Executive Secretariat, I would like to draw your attention to the brief that has been prepared for us, that 4 items that we had gone through, some iterations on HICD brief and action update on human resource development. The pages are not numbered, but I'll briefly mention them. And these are, despite the agreement among 8 practitioners of the purported high cost of US-based academic training, no comprehensive benefit cost analysis on US-based long-term agriculture training is available to substantiate this claim. Anecdotal evidence suggests that alternative models that have been projected and tried in developing countries with support coming from other agencies indicate that those training modalities have not been any cheaper than investments in US universities, as well as the recognition that the quality of education received for these developing country personnel has been much lower than that provided traditionally by US university community. 2, foreign students' access to US training is market-based, and ability to pay is resulting in a growing imbalance of US training of agricultural scientists from developing countries, and the decreasing trend that I mentioned versus the emerging market economies, where income is increasing, raising long-term from US national security issues, long-term concern about US national security issues by constricting direct collaborative research networking in the developing countries. And this is to reference that fee-paying developing country students that are coming from China, India, and the emerging economies disproportionately as compared to those receiving from coming in from developing countries. 3, the US is a leading global source of training in the ag biosciences, and with limited access of developing countries students to US training, the ability of developing countries to acquire and advance transformative agriculture innovations will be constrained. 4, access to US long-term training based on gender is recognized as an issue and progress is being made. However, it hasn't been evident that the merit-based fellowship for the needy and underserved population in developing countries are considered in USAID HICD programming. So in terms of actions that would be suggested is this meta-analysis on where we stand with commitments to human and institutional capacity development within the agency, and then making an assessment of the target needs in developing countries and projecting then a recommendation to the agency on programs that would meet these needs more effectively and engaging higher education institutions in developing countries. BIFAD may then wish to revisit the issue of long-term US-based graduate training in agriculture, and particularly under Feed the Future, and specifically commission an assessment to examine the USAID policy of relying on the HICD programming policy as opposed to participant short-term training programming. The assessment could also address other issues as identified above. Thank you very much.
President Gebisa, thank you. It was a very clear presentation, and I appreciate you delineating a framework there that provides guidance for board consideration and ultimately for action to be taken. So let me open this up to others who may want to comment on the report that Gebisa has provided. Catherine?
As Dr. Ajita has mentioned, there's a lot of potential, but also a lot of work that needs to be done in this area. And he's a perfect person to dig deeper into it and to be able to give further advice, not only to BIFAD, but ultimately to what kind of advice BIFAD should give to USAID on this matter. But human capital is so, nothing is going to be done unless we further invest in this area. So it really needs to continue to be a very high priority for us and for the agency.
The long-term linkage between our universities and the countries with whom USAID is working, and particularly Feed the Future countries, we've got to be looking 25 to 50 years ahead on the continuing integration of knowledge and the relationships between those people in those countries with our universities back here. And so, because we see that in those investments made 25, 30, 50 years ago now, as we continue to work with the scientific personnel, educational personnel, and leadership of countries around the world. So I think you've emphasized that and called attention to it, and I think it's very important we keep that in perspective. So thank you. Yes, what Ed?
I just have a question for Dr. Ejita. Do you have a timeline in mind for this meta-analysis that you are recommending?
Yeah, it's about a year too late. No, I think it should be possible, if resources were available, to complete this thoughtful analysis and provide the agency administrator with a report before the end of this year.
Excellent. Okay, again, thank you very much. Gabe-san, please keep our feet to the fire, so to speak, on ensuring that we provide as much good support to you as possible and to USAID staff as we look forward to this. And we think those recommendations could be of very significant importance to Dr. Shaw and USAID. We're going to, any other items of old or new business that we need to bring before the board at this time? And for those of you that if you're looking at the agenda and saying, gosh, surely there's something new we need to be addressing, let me assure you that after a strong planning session yesterday, we are working hard to look at future actions we will be taking. And the session today will further inform and flesh out some of those ideas as we look to the future.